Welcome to NC Tweener Talks, powered by NC Idea, a weekly podcast by builders for builders, where we explore the startup journey from the idea to the exit and all the lessons in between, with an exclusive focus on founders from North Carolina. Now, here's your host, serial founder and general partner of the NC Tweener Fund, Scott Wingo.
First, a huge thank you to our platinum sponsor. NC Idea Foundation fosters sustainable economic development with competitive grants and programs for entrepreneurs and funding to strengthen the North Carolina entrepreneurial ecosystem. First, a huge thank you to our gold sponsors. Today, we are featuring EisnerAmper. EisnerAmper helps tech companies from startups to public enterprises navigate growth with tailored accounting, tax, advisory, and outsourcing solutions. They have deep industry knowledge, support over 2,100 technology companies as well as investors. We'd also like to recognize our silver sponsors. Today, we are featuring Automated Consulting Group. Ready to transform your business with AI? Automated Consulting Group delivers executive workshops, fractional CAIO guidance, and custom AI solutions built for your business. Thank you again to all of our sponsors for supporting the North Carolina Tweener Talks and the entire Tweener community. It takes an ecosystem to build a thriving community, and sponsors like these are invaluable. Welcome to this episode of North Carolina Tweener Talks. Today, I'm joined by Ben Scruggs. He is the CEO of Altis Biosystems. I'm a software guy, and today we're going to jump feet first into the world of health tech and biotech. Ben joined Altis by way of, he is a scientist on the biology side, PhD, and he joined Altis by way of the local firm Hatteras Ventures. On this episode, I'm going to ask a lot of basic questions because the healthcare companies are always got a lot going on, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that. If you're not familiar with that, I apologize to all you other biologists out there. They're going to think that these are crazy questions, so bear with us. But at the end of the day, what they're doing is got a impact on society, which is the really cool part of the healthcare biotech side of things. I'm not going to attempt to explain it. I'm going to let Ben do that in his own words. But I always enjoy chatting with Ben. He does a very good job. I've talked to a lot of these types of companies, and they're all interesting. Ben does a really good job of explaining it in a way I can understand, and I hope you see that too. In there, you can see he's very patient, asking what are probably for him really basic questions. So another thing is, as entrepreneurs, we should all make sure that we're being patient. I meet a lot of tech founders that get kind of frustrated when investors ask kind of dumb, quote unquote, dumb questions. So that's a learning right there from watching Ben as he goes through this. Hope you enjoy the conversation. Without further ado, here is Ben from Altis Biosystems. Welcome to this episode of North Carolina Tweener Talks. Today, I am joined by Ben Scruggs. He is CEO of Altis Biosystems. Ben, welcome to North Carolina Tweener Talks.
Thanks, Scott. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, we've known each other for quite a while. I think it's been 3 years. Have we been on the cap table 3 years? Okay. Yep. We have 180 investments at this point, so we love them all equally. But it's hard to remember what you all are up to, and when we first got introduced. I'm a software guy, and you are over on the health tech side, which is always, I learn 1,000 things when I talk to folks in your world, because software is a little complicated, but the health tech system gets super crazy complicated because you got so many stakeholders that are kind of involved in that world. Before we jump into what you do at Altis, let's talk a little bit about your background. Is this your first foray into the health tech biotech space, or has that been where you cut your teeth all along?
Yeah, I am a biologist through and through. My road to this particular role has been a little windy, but background research scientist, so technical background, did a PhD in cell biology, followed that up with
Dr. Ben, I apologize. I dropped the honorific.
absolutely fine not to have that in there. But I did a postdoc in genomics, which is what brought me to the Triangle, and have been here for 12, 13 years at least at this point, and jumped out of my academic career and got really excited about the entrepreneurial world and building companies. And the left turn that I took out of my academic career was into investing. So for the better part of a decade, have been a venture investor with Hatteras Venture Partners locally, and there have seen a little bit of every flavor that's in the health tech and biotech world. And so touching everything from drug development to medical devices to healthcare IT. Those are all things that have been in scope. And jumping into investing for me, that was bypassing a key aspect of the operational side of things. So several years ago at this point, I made the jump into spending time inside our portfolio and have done that in a couple of different capacities. Have done that with companies that have come out of Duke to really get into the nitty gritty biotech scene, a company that's doing epigenetic editing, so true high science. That company came out of Duke and is now in the clinic for hepatitis B. And then have been connected to the UNC community for quite some time. And that's where Altis came from. It originated from several different scientists at the University in North Carolina. And I was fortunate enough to get connected with them and stepped into the CEO role at Altis about 3 years ago, and have been working on this as my primary capacity, but still have one foot in both sides of the world on the operational side, and maintain my relationships at Hatteras as well.
Yeah, it's quite a journey. Usually people make kind of one pivot in their career trajectory, and then so you started out as a scientist, and then you're an investor, and then you decided to get onto the much more awesome and fun operating side of things.
Absolutely. It's where you roll
Yeah.
up your sleeves and ride the
Yeah.
roller coaster for sure.
Advice is easy. Unaccountable advice is easy. Accountable operations is a whole other ball of wax. The I have a bunch of questions. So when you did your postdoc, was that at UNC or Duke, or like what you said that brought you to the Triangle? Which school?
So I did that at NIEHS, which is the National Institute of Environmental Health Science. So one of the NIH institutes that's not in the DC, Bethesda, Maryland area. Actually quite relevant for what I do now at Altis. NIEHS, Environmental Health Science, shares a campus with EPA. A lot of those things are directly related to things that are happening in some of these model systems that we work on at Altis. So somewhat serendipitous that this is what I'm doing now. But my focus during my postdoc was largely on stem cells, and that was probably the technical aspect of what made Altis really interesting for me to come back to down the road.
Yeah, and so you mentioned a couple of things. I want to make sure that our audience groks a bit. Number one, we haven't really had anyone from Hatteras on before, so you're a gateway into opening that door. And I know a lot of those folks, and they've been a really great anchor. I think it's Hatteras and Pappas are the two kind of bigger biotech investors here in the Triangle. I know you're not there now, but like walk us through just like a big picture. You probably once you've worked at a firm, you could probably do the spiel in your sleep. Give us like the quick Hatteras, how big are they? What do they do? That type of thing.
Yeah. So Hatteras has been around for over 25 years, invested in over 100 companies across the broader healthcare space. It's all focused on early stage investments. So a lot of seed, Series A investments, trying to get companies off the ground, but touches anything related to human healthcare. So that can be true drug development, that can be investing in instruments, devices, but also connected to healthcare systems and thinking about the payer provider side of the world. And so trying to take that totality of everything that's needed for the healthcare space is really what's in scope. And firms investing out of their seventh fund at this point, and has deployed significant capital into the North Carolina region as well as broadly across the U.S. and North America.
Yeah. And I think they just did a fund 7, if I recall, and they have like they're by far the biggest. Well, I don't know about Pappas, but they have like 900 million under management at this point because they've done so many funds, and the funds keep getting bigger. And so they're kind of one of our great supporters of that side of the ecosystem. And so they do biotech, which to me is kind of like where you start getting into drug development, and then they do a fair amount of software on the health tech side too.
Exactly.
Yeah, I believe it's relatively evenly split from a portfolio perspective, but I don't know the details on that. Yeah. And then you talked a little bit about in your postdoc getting into genomics. Talk a little bit about, was that kind of, were you doing CRISPR, or was that back when we were just decoding the genome? What were some of the things you were doing there?
Yeah. So my interests from broadly originally related to regions of the genome that most people haven't focused on. So different types of expression coming off of the genome. What I mean by that are not just expression of proteins that get created, but also RNA. So the generation of RNA pre-pandemic, before everyone was thinking about what mRNA looked like, I was doing RNA biology. So that's what I did my grad school work on. Saw a lot of the first companies pop up in that space. That was kind of what planted the bug in the back of my mind in terms of startups, is seeing some of those biotech companies pop up. But I was looking at really mechanistic, definitely deep on the science aspects of what controls regulation of those different regions of the genome. And that's what I was really excited about, but always thinking about how can you take these types of findings and translate them to patients or to anything away from the bench. And that was primary motivator for me to think about things beyond just the academic world of doing science.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so Altis was a portfolio company, and you decided, hey, this is a chance to do an operating type thing. Yeah. Was that an easy choice or a hard choice, or were you already kind of like helping out and serendipity just kind of happened where it opened up? How did that come to be?
Yeah, there's definitely elements of serendipity that are involved in this. I think that the aspects of spending time on the operational side of the world, and Hatteras had given me some latitude to spend time within the portfolio, and then this opportunity presented itself, and it was just too many stars aligning to say no in any way. Of what I mean by that is I've done work in stem cell biology. So looking at all that genome regulation, the best system to do it was largely, and this was kind of at the time that CRISPR was starting to become something that everyone wanted to touch. Good system for that was to do that in stem cells. And that is what Altis's core technology is built on, is taking stem cells and being able to turn that into a functional system or tool. And so as a cell biologist, this just became too cool for me to say no to. It was just like, this is, I love the mechanics of what was happening here. And certainly, it gets back to that idea of thinking long term, like this is an opportunity that I can probably have a meaningful impact on. And the company was at a point where it was really trying to scale up on the commercial side and think about where there are the opportunities to focus and grow. And that was an exciting challenge that I wanted to take on.
Got it. So that's a good entree into tell us in kind of layman's. You're at a cocktail party and you're trying to describe what your day job is. How do you describe what you guys do?
Yeah. So we are a company that we take stem cells, we take human cells, importantly, human cells, and we build model systems to recreate key barriers that are entry points to the body. So we think of that as stem cells that recreate epithelial barriers, if we use that technical term. But the point here is that we have focused the company entirely on the gut to date. So we've been trying to build one of those barriers, the gut, as anything that has to be delivered into the body orally has to go through the gut. And so what we do as a company is we've built a human-based system to recapitulate that. And that's a system that can be used for all sorts of different purposes, be it for looking at aspects of drug development or nutrition. But that's our core aspect, is trying to reproduce those barrier systems.
Got it. What is a epithelial barrier?
So
Why do I care about it?
an epithelial barrier is that interface between outside your body and inside your body.
Okay, so it's getting things to work into your body.
Yeah, the gut is a big one of the biggest ones. Of the gut's really complicated in terms of all the different structures that it has. If you unwind it, the lining of your gut's about the size of a tennis court. So it becomes super fascinating of trying to look at all these interactions between what's happening of any point of trying to enter through that.
Got it. Okay, so what are the use cases? So this seems like it'd be helpful, but what am I doing? Am I making sure Tums stop digestive issues, or what are we using this for?
Yeah, so there are three main buckets that we have as markets for this tool that we've developed, and most of those relate to drug development. And really, you can think of this as any drug that you would be delivering orally. So thinking of that as taking a pill. To understand how that works before you ever put it in a patient, you need to understand sort of what those dynamics look like, of how easily is it going to be taken up and what happens and how does it behave after you take it up. So one market, there's a set of scientists at every pharma and biotech company that looks at the absorption of those orally delivered molecules, how well that compound gets metabolized through the gut. So those compounds get metabolized in the gut. Your liver does a lot of work for that metabolism as well. And then we also can look at other aspects of inflammation in the gut. So that's a big market for us. That's a major problem. A lot of people have different types of inflammatory syndromes. Inflammatory bowel disease is a highly prevalent therapeutic area, and we can test any type of compound that's being developed for that space. And then the last space that where we can work is toxicity. So probably more than any other adverse effect of new drugs in development, they get discontinued for gastrointestinal side effects. So, that can cause all sorts of issues. That could be nausea, that could be diarrhea, it could be lots of different problems that get introduced. And we can help assess that before that compound ever goes into a human to see if there's a risk for a new drug that's in development. And those are all valuable to companies that are developing these, because they're paying millions of dollars to run their clinical trials. And the more that they understand about these compounds before they put them into patients, that's where they can save time and money.
Yeah. Yeah, so here in the Triangle we have a lot of the GLP-1 folks. We've got Eli,
Yeah,
and then also uh, Noro
Nova
Nordisk
Nordisk.
or
Yeah.
Nova Nordisk. Yeah, and so let's say they come up with like a new fancy GLP-1 pill, and they want to make sure that there's nothing adverse, that they can run it through your system, and you do it for them, or you license them the technology. Do you do you provide the service, or?
Yeah, we have a dual business model. We do services. We have an internal team of scientists, PhD scientists that can design and run those studies. So we function as a CRO effectively, where we can provide that research offering, or we can actually ship the product out. So we do that as a kit rather than as a licensing deal. So we can just sell the kit and they can run the studies themselves and execute the experiment in their hands.
Yeah. Uh, okay, so then let's use the one where you do it for them. That's easier for me to understand. So I send you guys some pills, you run it through, or I send a compound to you, you run it through, and then you generate a report on the adverse piece of it. But then also, can you look at the efficacy of it and kind of say, well, this did not, um, you know, for whatever, maybe GLP-1 is the wrong example, but whatever, if it's trying to work on the gut, can you say it did work on the gut or did not, kind of thing? Or maybe a GLP-1 has a side effect of, like, the early Ozempics had like really bad cramping, bad, it was very rough on the gut, I guess is the right way to say it. Is that kind of is that the type of stuff you guys do?
You've totally got it. So that's exactly what we do. And we work with our customers to define what that scope of work is going to be, of exactly what do they want to measure. And we can do any or all of those things. We can focus specifically on, is there a potential adverse event that's happening there? Is it efficacious? And in all reality, the GLP-1s are highly relevant for what we do, because those peptides, that's an interesting class that's been incredibly challenging. It was challenging for the GLP-1s. They're not readily absorbed, and especially as a pill formulation. And those are the types of studies that we can run, are absorption studies, to see how well something is going to be taken up. And that's question number one. And so it seemed really niche to just focus on the gut, but because we can answer all those different questions, it's given us a lot of opportunity to help customers with those pain
Well,
points.
every pill goes through there, right? I mean,
Exactly.
it
Yeah.
seems like even there's even a lot of supplement, non FDA stuff that goes through there. Is that a thing?
Yes.
Like, you'll hear like Joe Rogan or someone, or Tim Ferriss will talk about this exciting
Yeah.
thing, and then you Google it, and it says, well, you got to be careful what you buy because a lot of it's not bioavailable. It's kind of like the language they use, but I
Yes.
imagine that's absorption.
So that's exactly it. So bioavailability is the measurement, and it's interesting. So bioavailability is a pretty straightforward equation, and the lining of the gut is a major contributor to how you get to that bioavailability percentage. Like it's simply, you start with 100% of something, and you care about how much actually gets to the place you want it to get. And some fraction of that is going to get lost in the lining of the gut. And that's exactly what we do, is we can tell you precisely what percentage is going to get lost across the gut barrier. And that way they can go back and they can optimize, make changes, and do those types of tests. And that's what leads to potential work. We can do the follow-on work to see if it's made it better or not.
Yeah. So is your TAM not only the FDA type drugs, but also some of the non as well? Do they come to you,
Yeah.
or do you just really
Yeah.
focus on the more
Yeah,
FDA
it's
type stuff?
a fascinating area. So certainly, we've spent a lot of time and attention on the FDA regulated side of the world, but nutrition companies broadly, not just the supplement companies that are in the Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss side of the world, but also, your household nutrition companies. Like, think about companies that are thinking about food products, there are lots of opportunities
The
for
CPG
them.
companies formulate new foods, and
Yeah,
maybe they have a new way to make a Pringle or something that doesn't
yeah,
use fat. Like I remember there was something called Olean back in the day, and I don't think it's used anymore because it caused quite a bit of
yeah,
gut discomfort
exactly,
with
exactly.
a pretty large population of people. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. Interesting. Um, so walk us through. So how has it been being a scientist and then kind of getting into the company building process? Is that you kind of had a gateway through VC, so you had a little bit of an on ramp. You could kind of like see how other CEOs were doing it and whatnot. But what are some of the things, and where are you on that trajectory when you joined the company? Was it in my world, we have pre-seed, seed, and all, and this kind of thing. But I know in the bio world, it kind of is a different shape to how you guys fundraise. Where was the company in its life cycle, and what are some of the things you've learned?
Yeah. So when I joined, the company had already raised a seed round, and the initial product was already commercial. Um, at that point, I think since then, a lot of where I've spent time and attention, and our team has really spent time, is focusing on where the best and highest use is for this technology. I think we've spent a lot of time. Customer discovery never really stops, but we've spent a lot of time really understanding where are the primary pain points that this type of technology can help address, and being a very lean, operationally focused team that can build technologies related to this, sort of honing in on best use cases before we think about how do we accelerate this and grow this into anything more.
Yeah, I've never hired a team of scientists, but it sounds like it could get expensive.
Yeah, there there's no shortage of great ideas, and that's part of what you want in phenomenal scientists, are people who are just thinking of what are the additional things you can do, and it's building commercial companies, or really trying to focus on the commercial growth of this, requires a lot of a focus and discipline, and not just dabbling in the science, but making sure you're spending your resources on the right areas of opportunity for commercial growth.
Yeah. So you joined, and there was a seed. Along with that, I assume Hatteras must have been involved because that's kind of how your gateway in here. They did the seed? Is that kind of the
Yeah. So there, this is the original way that I got involved. Is there was a Hatteras affiliated fund that managed capital for UNC. And
okay?
because this was a
I
UNC
got it.
company, and that's where the initial investment came from, that's how I got involved. And since then, this has become a core Hatteras investment, just given the trajectory that the company's been on, and the potential. So, following on with a financing, Hatteras is committed in a bigger way.
Yeah. Cool. Was it a tech transfer kind of out of UNC, like officially through the tech transfer thing?
Yeah, it's exclusively licensed from UNC.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of that activity, especially on the medical side between Duke and
Right.
UNC that's interesting.
Yeah,
Trying to kind of replicate that Stanford University model, who were the OGs for the tech transfer world.
for
Um,
sure.
and then has it been weird being on this side of the table raising capital? Do you have more empathy for founders now
Without
than you did
question.
before?
That's that's the easiest answer. So you learn a lot. You learn a lot about the the questions people ask, things that what's useful from an investment side, what you need to focus on as an operator that's useful for investors. Obviously, I understood a lot of that coming into this, but you see all sorts of things from investors, and I think that's it's definitely a different perspective that I can share with other operators at this point, is sort of what that full lens looks like.
Yeah. If there was another venture side person coming into the operating role, what would what would you say are like some of the top things you've learned?
Yeah.
Would you encourage them to do it, or would you say whatever you do, don't do what I did, or 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 would you what? And if you did encourage them to do it, what's some of the advice you would give them?
uh, I would absolutely encourage it. I almost think it should be required in some ways of fully understanding the ins and outs and the dynamics. There are so many dynamics that are not fully considered from the investor side of, investors are thinking strategy and what the larger dynamics are critically important, but the dynamics of making teams able to do that is really the piece that I think is helpful for anyone who's lived on the venture side to understand what that looks like. I think it also gives a better appreciation for operators that can build exceptional teams and what a talent that is and how that's required to get to different stages of a business. And I think that is, on the biotech, health tech side of the world, it's definitely something that venture investors have an appreciation for. You're not investing in science projects. The teams always matter, but I think when you're living in it day to day of what that looks like, that's a skill well worth understanding.
Yeah, yeah. The thing, you're kind of like a tech founder in some regards because of your being a scientist. And the thing I always alert other first time tech founders about is you're going to be spending most of your time selling. They're like, what do you mean? Like, why do I have to sell? I have salespeople. Well, selling comes in, think of it as persuasion. That's all I do all day is I persuade new shareholders. I persuade existing shareholders to stay happy. I try to recruit people. I talk to customers and, around and around it goes. Try to make employees happy and stay. It's like it is the largest chunk of my pie chart is on that. And that always surprises people. And it's the one skill we don't learn in school on the technical side. We need to do way more of that. People skills end up being pretty valuable. You're naturally gregarious. You don't, you're a gregarious type scientist person, but you could imagine the super cone head types would have a really hard time with it.
Yeah, for sure.
You kind of hinted in there. You said your initial commercial product. So, is this the type of thing where you have aspirations to go into other areas, and where can the technology take you from here?
Yeah. So, absolutely, we think there are places that we can go beyond what we're doing now. We have spent time being very intentional at being good at what we do. There are elements of, we take the science that we do because we provide it as a service, we provide it as a product. We've focused very heavily on how reproducible that can be. And that consistency is critically important from a customer standpoint, absolutely essential. And on the roller coaster history of our company, probably the biggest challenge that we've ever faced is understanding how to generate reproducibility. But we have definitely gotten through that to the point where we're moving well beyond that aspect. But we have those core fundamentals and think that can be translated not just to the gut, but other epithelial barriers. So that's the part that I mentioned of, we think our core technology is entry point into anywhere that might be interesting. So, you can imagine the gut is one place that you can get through any interface with the outside world. Obviously, our skin, lungs, any of those are possibilities. And, those are areas that we're interested in expanding into and doing that in intentional ways where we can translate things. We've seen other model system companies that have tried to do a lot of different tissues, and we've been fortunate to be able to see whether that works well or not work well, to have a bigger catalog of items. But here we think there are things that are directly related to what we're already doing. And the long-term vision for us, it's actually, now this becomes a little serendipitous because the original name Altis is pushing together all tissues, and that's where the name came from.
Huh.
And we spent most
That
of
was
our
some Latin
lives.
word. I don't know Latin, so I just assume if I don't understand the word, it's Latin.
Yeah. We've always focused on the gut. We still see lots of room and opportunity to grow there, but I think there are ways for us to expand the aperture even further.
Yeah, in my software world, it's hard to get a customer, but if you can build trust with a set of customers, they tend to come to you when they kind of understand what you're good at, and because you have a relationship. Is that a thing in your world where these companies where you're getting to know them and they're kind of like, wow, I really wish I had this for this new skin cream I'm coming up with, or something like that. Is there a little bit of a way to read client customer demand before you take a leap into a new area?
Yes, certainly there are real aspects of that, and that goes back to thinking about where can this tool be useful of those different buckets. The absorption and metabolism scientist is going to face those same challenges. One day they may be working on something that's orally delivered. They may be, and I'm certainly generalizing here, but if they're working on something that's inhaled as a future aspect of the pipeline, then that could be one where they're going to trust our ability to build those types of models. And that's one where we've been able to do that type of always continuous customer discovery. We're going to learn from our existing customers where else they have those pain points. And that's helped shape our thinking into where does it really make sense to continue to develop our product offering.
Yeah, I guess bioavailability of something you inhale through your lungs is at the end of the day, it's different delivery, but a same equation
Same
of some
concept.
kind.
Exactly.
Some percent
Yeah.
makes it through, some doesn't. Okay,
Got
interesting.
it.
You're very good at helping non-scientists understand this. um, the in our world, we think about scale in different ways. Give us an idea, and I don't want anything proprietary. But what kind of scale are you guys at? Obviously, you're past, you're through what we would call product market fit. You've got a lot of customers. Is there a number of studies you do a day or anything like that, or number of compounds in total you've worked on that would be kind of an interesting size of the scale that you're at?
Yeah. I think the way that we can describe that is, number of compounds that we handle at any time. And this is, we think this is a really interesting place, and where we've designed our business around is throughput capacity is how a lot of customers think about this space. They think about cost per sample or cost per compound. And so our form factor goes back to this idea of we're intentionally simple. And here, when I say simple, we use form factors that they're all familiar with. So they're multi-well plates, so little wells, like 12, 24, or 96 wells at a time. And those form factors allow us to look at multiple compounds at any time. And when we run individual studies, we've moved from doing studies that are designed around dozens of compounds to now more routinely being able to handle larger scales of the 100 to thousands of compounds. And that's when things get more interesting, because it requires aspects of automation, robotics, and it's not just having a team being able to do it, but how do we do that in the most efficient way possible, both because our customers want the turnaround time, and also, to your question of scalability, do we just grow our team more, which doesn't necessarily have a happy team at the end of the day if they're having to do all this work by brute force. So, a lot of that is the aspect of how can we enable our our internal efficiency to do that with the help of lots of cool, fun robotic tools that we can bring in. And sort of we're at that inflection point is where we are as a company.
Yeah. And when you get to thousands of something, tracking it all and making sure that, you're providing the actual results for number 980. And that's the one that you actually, a lot more tracking and making sure all the I's are dotted happens as you go from the small, as you scale up. In it, so that kind of, I kind of assumed this was stuff that was like super late stage in its development pipeline, but it sounds like if you're doing that many, it sounds like maybe they're like, hey, we've come up with, we have a panel of 60 different compounds that are interesting to us. And before we even develop a drug, we want to run it through there. Like, is that kind of what's happening? It's like way earlier in the process than I kind of assumed.
Yeah, no, and that's by design is how we think about it. So, there's opportunity. We want to be a provider that's helping companies at the early stages of drug development where they're screening several compounds. And part of that just gets into a calculation of the volume opportunity versus focusing on what is that maybe that one compound that they're going to decide we are going to take this forward into the clinic. And that's where there are our system's definitely amenable for looking at some of those, but there's probably a bigger competitive landscape to assess some of those types of analyses. So we try to do a broad spectrum of everything before compounds are taken into the clinic.
Got it. If people want to learn more about what y'all are up to, where should they go?
So best places, certainly we have a lot of information on our website. What we regularly are posting on LinkedIn, where we're going to be giving latest updates on new developments on our science, as well as conferences where we're presenting new information on the latest and greatest that's coming out of our platform.
Awesome. Ben, thanks for taking time to help us understand what you guys are building. And it is wild to see all the really cool things being built here right in North Carolina.
Thank you, Scott.
NC Tweener Talks is hosted by Scott Wingo, presented and produced by NC Tweener Fund, which is powered by NC Idea, with creative assets and design support from our friends at Walk West. That's it for today's episode. A big thank you to our guests, sponsors, and the team that makes this podcast possible. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves the startup stories coming out of North Carolina Tweener Talks and the entire Tweener community.